I'll do that. So I'm reading each sentence and we'll discuss it if necessary. It is clear that a conception of this kind and its effective practice must carry in them three results that are of a central importance for our spiritual ideal. Not the word our spiritual ideal. He is not talking about everybody else's ideal. Because some people, their ideal is only liberation, their ideal is only love, their ideal is only relation with the divine. But Sridhar is very stressed. So we have to understand this importance of our. When he's saying our means the integral yoga. That's what it means. Now, it is clear that a conception of this kind. So what is that conception? So I'll read out the previous para, his conception, what he is demanding. Okay. I won't read the whole para. I'll just say that the idea is that everything that you do, okay, I'm going to shock you. Even the most banal, you are walking in the road, you are even going for a bath, okay, everything associated with the divine. Okay. Yes, even those things which we feel are not very pure, associated with the divine, then what will happen? That which seemed impure will start becoming pure. So, everything that you do, okay. Shilpa, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, so everything that you do, okay, you offer it to the divine. Remember and offer. There are two stages there. First is remembering mechanically. There may be no emotion. Sriyamda says it doesn't matter. Even the mere remembrance. And then in your mind you can make a movement even of, you see mother sitting and you lay down your thought or your emotion or your action at her feet. Imagination is a very powerful tool and you should use your imagination. Think of her as sitting or standing, whatever you want, and you are offering it at her feet. Whatever you are doing, maybe food or maybe sleep or even as I said, your most insignificant action. Okay. So that is what they.
Rangan,
Yes, tell me.
can offering be done without emotion?
Yes, it can be done because by pure memory, okay, you feel that there is no emotion. You just remember her. There may be no emotional reaction at all in the being. He mentions that. And I have seen also, when I remember, sometimes there is no emotion at all, but you just remember. Okay? There is no excitement or there is no joy in the offering. It's just a mere mechanical remembrance. Even that is important. Sometimes we may feel, okay, and that's very important. There are many people who say, oh, when I go to this, you are asking, my parents asked me to go to the Samadhi. But when I go there, my mind is elsewhere, here, there, it becomes mechanical. So why should I go? I can remain at home. That's not very correct. Okay. Even if it is mechanical, you have to continue to do it, and one day the emotion comes into the mechanical act, and it's no more mechanical. Okay. Yeah, in the beginning it is like that. If you are having emotion when you are offering, it is wonderful. You are very lucky. You are very, very lucky. Okay. So that's what. So this is the conception that he is talking about. Okay. This is the conception. It is clear that a conception of this kind and its effective practice, not the word effective. It has to have an effect. It has to have a result. Practice must carry in them three results that are of a central, where is it gone? Importance for our spiritual idea. Others need not do it, but you have to do it. If you are interested in Sriyamda's yoga. Note also interestingly that every soul is not necessarily meant for this path. There are others who are wanting only liberation. There are others who are wanting only love. I am satisfied only with love. I don't care for this. It's too difficult and I don't want all that. But Sriyamda wants relation of knowledge, relation of emotion, relation of even practical life. Okay? That's what he wants. That's why he's saying, if you want three results, if you go on practicing the sacrifice, remembrance and offering, it is evident to begin with that even if such a discipline is begun without devotion, there you are, okay, very clearly he's saying, even if it is begun without devotion, it leads straight and inevitably towards the highest devotion possible. Even if it is mechanical in the beginning, it will lead you to devotion and love. For it must deepen naturally into the completest adoration imaginable, the most profound God love. Remembrance and offering, remembrance and offering. Well, probably the most powerful tool that man has at his command. But the problem is that it's not that easy. It comes after a long time. Okay, but it's worth trying. Okay. Then he says, begun without, it leads straight and inevitably, note the word inevitably, he is promising you towards the highest devotion possible. For it must deepen naturally into the completest adoration imaginable, the most profound God love. There is bound up with it a growing sense of the divine in all things. Note that. When you remember, then everything starts putting on a different attitude. Okay, it's very interesting. Okay, the slightest thing coming, you will remember the divine. Okay, it comes in automatically. Like he says about the mantra also. He says about the mantra when you go on repeating mechanically. Okay, finally what happens is that the inner being starts repeating the mantra in a under the waking consciousness at a lower level of the consciousness, lower level but more true, more subtle. The mantra goes on, okay, automatically. Okay, you are not doing it consciously in your mind, but it goes on in the inner being. Okay, he has given so many mantras, na? They are interesting. Om Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi, Satyamayi, Parame. That is one which is very commonly used by ashramites. Then there is another one, Om Sri Aurobindo Meera, in his own handwriting. Huh? Om Sri Aurobindo Meera, open my mind, my heart, my life to your light, your love, your power. In all things may I see the divine. Note the all things. Even in the most ugly, even in the most repulsive, you have to see the divine. And that can come only at the end. In the beginning, we will definitely be repulsed and we will not see the divine in, but ultimately it will come. Okay? There is bound up with it a growing sense of the divine in all things, a deepening communion with the divine in all our thought, will, action. Thought belongs to the mind, the will to the vital part, and the action in the physical part. And every movement of our lives, a more and more moved consecration to the divine in the totality of our being. Sri Aurobindo often uses the word moved like this, more moved. That means when there is movement, it is dynamic. It's not static. I think he means it that way. The more dynamic consecration to the divine of the totality of our being by the mind and the vital and the body. Okay? Now, these implications of the yoga of works, karma yoga, are also of the very essence of an integral and absolute bhakti. So, when you are doing the karma yoga, remembering and offering, it will lead you ultimately to the integral and absolute bhakti, devotion, love for the divine. The seeker who puts them into living practice. Note the word living, he is using the word living here. Earlier he has used the word moved, dynamic. Okay? Living practice makes in himself continually a constant, active and effective representation of the very spirit of self-devotion. And it is inevitable that out of it there should emerge the most engrossing worship of the highest to whom is given this sacrifice. An absorbing love for the divine presence to whom he feels an always more intimate closeness grows upon the consecrated worker, the one who is working for the divine in everything. We have discussed the word consecration, if you remember. Consecration is to remember and offer, and when you offer to the divine, whatever you are offering becomes holy, it becomes sacred, and then it has a power which is not there in other things. Okay? If you are offering a flower is a flower. But when you offer it to the divine, it becomes holy and it becomes sacred, and its vibrations become totally different. Okay, it starts helping you. That's what he's saying. And with it is born, or in it is contained, a universal love too for all these beings, living forms and creatures that are habitations of the divine. In everything, the divine is there, present in everything, whether animate or even inanimate. You see all these things. When the cycle comes forward, there is a perception of beauty and joy. They always go together. Okay? Love, beauty, and joy. Even at our normal human level, these three things are always there. If you look carefully, you will see. Even when you fall in love with somebody, okay, at a very, very ordinary level, there is a sense of beauty that comes in, and there is a sense of also joy. Of course, human love can lead to misery also, but that is a different thing. But these three things are always there. Okay, so beauty, love, and joy, they go together. So that's what he's saying. Engrossing worship of the highest to whom is given. And absorbing love for the divine presence to whom he feels an always more intimate closeness grows upon the consecrated work. And with it, it is born, or in it is contained a universal love too for all these beings, okay? Whether they be animals or whether they be plants or whether they be flowers or whatever, everything starts becoming significant and you start loving everything. Living forms and creatures that are habitations of the divine. The divine is there everywhere, omnipresent divine. Okay. Not the brief, restless, grasping emotions of devotion, of division, but the settled, selfless love that is the deeper vibration of oneness. The deeper vibration of oneness. In all, the seeker begins to meet the one object of his adoration and service. You start seeing the divine in everything. The way of works turns by this road of sacrifice to meet the path of devotion. It can be itself a devotion as complete, as absorbing, as integral as any the desire of the heart can ask for or the passion of the mind can imagine. So he's saying Karma Yoga, that's why Mother also was very, very keen on works, Karma Yoga. And when you do that, it leads you to devotion if it is done in the right way. That's what he said. Okay? So you can go to the next para. Unless any of you have some thoughts and you would like to share with us. Okay? So let us go to the next para. Who will read? One of you has to read. Next, the practice of the yoga.
I'm reading.
Okay, go ahead.
Next, next, the practice of this yoga demands a constant inward remembrance of the one central liberating knowledge, and a constant active externalizing of it in works comes in to intensify the remembrance. In all is the one self, the one divine is all. All are in the divine, all are the divine, and there is nothing else in the universe. This thought or this faith is the whole background until it becomes the whole substance of the consciousness of the worker. A memory, a self dynamizing meditation of this kind must and does in its end turn into a profound and uninterrupted vision and a vivid and all embracing consciousness of that which we so powerfully remember or on which we so constantly meditate. For it compels a constant reference at each moment to the origin of all being and will and action, and there is at once an embracing and exceeding of all particular forms and appearances in that which is their cause and upholder. This way cannot go to its end without its seeing vivid and vital, as concrete in its way as physical sight of the works of the universal spirit everywhere. On its summit, it rises into constant living and thinking and willing and acting in the presence of the supramental, the transcendent. Whatever we see and hear, whatever we touch and sense, all of which we are conscious, has to be known and felt by us as that which we worship and serve. All has to be turned into an image of the divinity, perceived as a dwelling place of his Godhead, enveloped with the eternal omnipresence. in its close, if not long before it. This way of work turns by communion with the divine presence, will and force, into a way of knowledge more complete and integral than any the mere creature intelligence can construct or the search of the intellect can discover.
Yeah, can discover. Very nice. So, very interesting things what he's saying. Okay, I'll give you some examples also. He's saying whatever we see and hear. Okay, so there are very interesting examples of that. Okay, next, the practice of this yoga demands a constant inward remembrance. Okay? He has told you that there are three results. And normally what we would do is, at least I would do, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I would actually number them. But Srivendra doesn't always do that. He sometimes says firstly, secondly, lastly, he says. But here he's saying next. That's the second one. Okay. Next, the practice of this yoga demands a constant inward remembrance of the one central liberating knowledge and a constant active externalizing of it in works comes into to intensify the remembrance. The remembrance is something in the mind, but then you have to, suppose you are doing some work, okay, it has to express itself in the work, okay. You make it absolutely objective. That which is subjective in the mind, you make it objective. As I told you, suppose even you are wiping dishes in the dining hall. There's a very interesting example of that. I told you, I think, once. Okay, it was a judge from Patna. Okay, the family was here quite long, and it was quite a big family. Okay, and there were one boy was a wonderful boy, Sham Kumar and Padna Kumar. They were two brothers. They were the sons of this man. He was wiping dishes in the dining hall. I think I've told you once. Okay, he was a judge and he was a devotee of Mother and Surrender. So when he came here, he said, I'm going to be here for 15-20 days. So give me some work so that I can do some work. The work given to him was go and wipe the dishes after they are boiled in hot water in the dining hall. So he felt a little offended. I'm a judge and I should have been given some desk work, okay? Maybe some proofreading or maybe some editorial work. But here I am being asked to do menial work, okay? Handiwork. So anyway, I've been asked to do so I will. And he started doing that. But he had a fantastic experience. When he is wiping the dish, in the dish, he saw Srivendu's image. So that is what Srivendra said. Whatever you do, and in his case, it happened even with a little bit of resentment. Now, if you do that willingly, you can see how much more powerful it will be. Okay. Then he understood the value of any work. The work itself is not important. It is the attitude with which you do it that matters. So it was a big experience for him, and we came to know about that because it was so stunning for him. That story became quite well known in the ashram at that time. So, remembrance of the one central liberating, the subjective knowledge must be externalized. It must become part of your physical action also. In the works, comes in to intensify the remembrance. Remembrance in the mind is almost, you can say, abstract, but it must generate and pour out into a physical action. Then it becomes, the remembrance becomes intensified. In all is the one self. Okay, it's very interesting. Suppose you are riding a scooter, okay, and going somewhere. Imagine that the mother is sitting on a pillion with you, okay, things like that, okay. It sounds very funny, but this is how you have to do everything. Suppose you are washing fruits. Imagine that mother is there also guiding you. Or even in fact, you can even think of her as washing some of the fruits along with you, okay. This is the sort of thing that one has to make absolutely physical action, okay. Then it has a tremendous power. So, comes in to intensify the remembrance. In all is the one self. The one divine is all. The divine is there in everything. We don't see that, but when this devotion is practiced in this way, you can see it ultimately. Don't think it will get it in 1 or 2 days. This is something that we are all impatient, but it takes a long time, but it's worth, the effort is worth it. So, in all is the one self. The one divine is all. All are in the divine. All are the divine. and there is nothing else in the universe. Advaita philosophy. This is the Indian contribution. Everything in the physical world, the most banal, the most ordinary, the most vulgar, everything is the divine. You have to see behind the form and you will see the divine lurking in the background. Okay? So, just 1 second. Yeah. So, all else in the universe. This thought or this faith is the whole background until it becomes the whole substance of our being, of the worker. Okay? Not the word substance of the consciousness. No, I think I skipped. No? This thought or this faith is the whole background until it becomes the whole substance of the consciousness of the worker. Not the word substance. Consciousness is not something abstract. It is a substance. And that substance becomes full of, the air is substance, but you don't feel it to be substance. And when you are lighting a dhoop or something, it fills the whole room. So this is what he's saying. The substance of the consciousness becomes full of love for the divine. Okay? It's something very, very concrete. A memory, a self-dynamizing meditation of this kind, okay, must and does in its end turn into a profound and uninterrupted vision and a vivid and all-embracing consciousness of that which we so powerfully remember or on which we so constantly meditate. Now note that we're making a difference between remembrance and meditating. Okay? Meditating is much more than remembering. Remembering can be very powerful, but meditating on it, that means constant remembrance. That's meditation. Okay, it becomes most effective. A remembrance can become a meditation, for it compels a constant reference at each moment to the origin of all being and will and action. Okay, now note again, being, will and action. And there is at once an embracing and an exceeding of all particular forms and appearances in that which is the cause and upholder. So everything becomes related to the divine. There are many grades, but ultimately you start seeing the divine in everything. Not quickly, but that is the ultimate aim for the integral yoga at least. This way cannot go to its end without a seeing. Okay, it's an actual sight. Seeing, vivid and vital, as concrete in its way as physical sight. Look at that. See, we think that physical sight is the most concrete, most proof. But he's saying it can be even the subtle seeing is more concrete. Okay? Or the works of the universal spirit everywhere. On its summits, it rises into a constant living and thinking and willing. Okay. Again, you can see how he is including all the parts of the being. Living, thinking, willing, and acting in the presence of the supramental, the transcendent. Whatever we see and hear, whatever we touch and sense, all of which we are conscious, has to be known and felt by us as that which we worship and serve. Now, it is very interesting. Whatever we see and hear, when you see something, there are two sonnets of the divine sight and the divine hearing. So, he is saying in that sonnet about seeing, wherever he turns, he sees himself, because you have become the self. You have become. I see myself with another face. That's the first one. And hearing. And it is very interesting sonnet. If you go to the divine hearing, if you go there, you will see that the most raucous sounds, the most noisy sounds also are divine sounds they become. He has mentioned particularly the industrial factory blowing its siren for the workers to come. It is time for the workers. Even that becomes a divine sound. Even the screeching of an eagle becomes a divine sound. Even the traffic noise becomes Surendra is using these images. I'm not really. Read that sonnet and you will see that, okay? The divine hearing.
Sonnet. Ranganath, which
It,
sonnet?
it's called the divine hearing. Yeah.
Divine hearing. Okay.
And there's also a divine sight. It's very interesting. He's saying actually all these things. He's saying the automobiles, no, he not exact word, but autos horn, okay, and the blaring of the siren. All these things become divine sounds. We can hardly think of being divine sounds. And traffic noise usually disturbs us. But in that consciousness, everything is divine. Wonderful. So, whatever we see and hear, whatever we touch and sense, all of which of which we are conscious, has to be known and felt by us as that which we worship and serve. Not the word worship, but also serve. Okay. All has to be turned into an image of the divine, perceived as a dwelling place of its Godhead, of His Godhead, enveloped in the eternal presence. In its close, at the end, if not long before it, even before the end of the sadhana, you can start examining, getting the experience, he's saying. This way of works turns by communion with the divine presence, will and force, into a way of knowledge, more complete and integral than any mere creature intelligence can construct or the search of the intellect can discover. So first result of sacrifice was devotion. The second result is knowledge. You come to know of the divine more and more intimately. Lastly, now we go to the third para. I would have said number 3, but he is saying lastly. Okay, what happens? Egoism disappears. So we will read that unless you have something to say. Okay, so everything, sight, sound, even touching and sensing, he is saying, you have to feel that as the divine. Even touching and sensing, all of which we are conscious. Normally, when we smell a beautiful flower, it's easier for us to imagine the divine. If you touch something very soft and sweet and gentle, we think of the divine. It's easier. But you must be able to touch even the harshest of objects and still feel that it's the divine. And that's very, very difficult, but that's the ultimate aim in integral yoga. Okay? So shall we read the last one? Lastly, the practice of this yoga. Sunki, good morning. You joined late, so I started recording. I did your job.
Thank you. Thank you for the recording.
I took over your function. Okay, so let's read the last one. Lastly, the practice of yoga.
Shall I read?
Yes, please go ahead.
Lastly, the practice of this yoga of sacrifice compels us to renounce all the inner supports of egoism, casting them out of our mind and will and action, and to eliminate its seed, its presence, its influence out of our nature. All must be done for the divine. All must be directed towards the divine. Nothing must be attempted for ourselves as a separate existence. Nothing done for others, whether neighbors, friends, family, country, or mankind, or other creatures, merely because they are connected with our personal life and thought and sentiment, or because the ego takes a preferential interest in their welfare. In this way of doing and seeing all works and all life become become only a daily dynamic worship and service of the divine in the unbounded temple of its own vast cosmic existence. Life becomes more and more the sacrifice of the eternal in the individual, constantly self-offered to the eternal transcendence. It is offered in the wide sacrificial ground of the field of the eternal cosmic spirit, and the force too that offers it is the eternal force, the omnipresent mother. Therefore, therefore is this way of union and communion by act and by the spirit and knowledge in the act as complete and integral as any our Godward will can hope for or our soul's strength execute.
Yeah. Okay. So, first result, Karma Yoga offering of everything to the divine gives you devotion for the divine. Secondly, it gives you knowledge of the divine. And lastly, it removes all egoism. So we have to understand what is egoism. Whenever you do something for yourself, okay, it is egoism. But that's the most gross. I want to eat something tasty. I go to the market and buy something and eat. I'm doing it for myself. Okay. But egoism is a very subtle thing. Even when you do something for others, okay, I am sacrificing my education because I want my brothers, younger brothers, and I am in a very poor family. I will sacrifice. I will earn my living so that my younger brother can get educated. Now you are doing it for your brother. But even this can be ego based. That's the interesting thing. That's why all philanthropy, altruism, humanitarianism, Sremda says, is not spiritual, but it is ego based. Of course, it can become non ego based also, but mostly it is ego based. You are doing it for your own satisfaction. The outer act is done for somebody else. And Sremda is mentioning that. Neighbors, friends, family, country, or mankind. Okay? It will become more and more universal. You are doing for the country. I am not doing anything for myself. I am doing it for the country. I am doing it for mankind. Yet there is a personal satisfaction. That personal satisfaction is egoism. So it becomes very, very subtle. That's what Sremda is saying. So you have to remove that gross egoism first goes away because you are doing it for the divine. You are not doing it. You are not thinking of yourself. Secondly, you have to remove even that subtle ego. And finally, you remove it entirely. That's at the end of the journey. So egoism. Okay. Lastly, the practice of this yoga of sacrifice compels us to renounce all the inner supports of egoism, casting them out of our mind and will and action. Now, he is talking of inner supports of egoism. So, you can give examples of inner supports. Humanitarianism, altruism, philanthropy are all sense of giving help to others. All these are the inner supports of egoism. Casting them out of our mind and will and action, and to eliminate its seed. Okay. That's the whole problem. The seed of egoism is very, very deeply entrenched in all human beings. Even in animals, it is there, but not as prominently as in human beings. Its presence, its influence out of the nature. You have to eliminate it right from the, as Sremda says, bleeding roots. You have to remove it from the bleeding roots. Okay. All must be done for the divine. All must be directed towards the divine. Nothing must be attempted for ourselves as a separate existence. Nothing done for others. Whether, that's interesting because when you are doing it for others.
We have come to take the TV.
Very good.
Chinokaku.
Give me 2 minutes, huh? Just 1 minute. So we are on the para which says lastly. Huh? So, in this way of doing, okay, I'm going, whether neighbors, friends, family, or country, or mankind. Okay? Even mankind. I can tell you a very interesting thing, Sremda's own experience. When he was the Uttarpada speech, if you read the Uttarpada speech, you will see this. Okay, Sremda is saying that when he was put into jail, okay, his complaint to the divine was, I was doing very unselfish work. I was fighting for the country, and now you have taken me and put me into jail. What is this? Why have you done this? Okay. Then it was explained to him that there is a bigger work for you. That work will be carried on by others. You have shown the way, and that will be done by others. You know, Sremda was the first one to write the practice, the principle of passive resistance. Okay? The principle, I'm not using the exact title, but the passive resistance. Okay? The That's a book that he wrote, and or it was practiced later on by others. Okay, Gandhi and all that, all passive resistance, but they distorted the meaning and brought in satyagraha and all that, charkha and all that. But Sremda had already very detailed explanation of the principle of passive resistance. Okay, so he had shown the way. So then Sremda realized that even there in the fight for the India's freedom, there is a personal satisfaction. Okay? He says that later on. Okay? So that's what he's warning you about. Okay? He's saying whenever you're doing something for your neighbor or your friend, there also there's a gradation very clearly. See, neighbors, friends, family, country, or mankind. Very clearly there's a gradation. Huh? The neighbor is someone you may not even know very well. A friend is someone you know quite well, but the family is even more dear to you than the friend. And the country can be more idealistic than your family. And finally, mankind. Okay? So all this also you must be very careful to see that the ego doesn't come in. That's what he's saying. Or other creatures merely because they are connected with our personal life and thought and sentiment, or because the ego takes a preferential interest in their welfare. In this way of doing and seeing, all works and all life become only a daily dynamic worship and service of the divine in the unbounded temple of his own vast cosmic existence. It's a beautiful phrase he is using. The temple, the whole cosmos becomes a temple, okay? And your worship is in that temple, the temple of the universe. Life becomes more and more the sacrifice of the eternal in the individual, constantly self-offered to the eternal transcendence. Now this sentence is a very interesting one, and we will discuss that briefly. He's saying life becomes more and more the sacrifice of the eternal in the individual, constantly self-offered to the eternal transcendence. What he's saying is that the universe is also doing everything, all the action that it is doing, it is offering to the highest divine. Okay? And there is also another idea also, which is all you can experience also, that the Prakriti is doing everything, because Prakriti is the force, Shakti, is doing everything, executing everything for the enjoyment of the divine. Okay? And this becomes an individual thing also, because when you reach the highest level of consciousness, everything that the body, mind, life is doing, or everything that is being done in the universe, you start enjoying it. Okay? There is nothing which is unpleasant. Even those things which remained unpleasant to you earlier now become pleasant. So, Prakriti is doing everything for the enjoyment of the Purusha. But this is at the universal level, and it's also at the individual level. That's the interesting part. And universe is offering to the divine, you are also offering to the divine through the universe. In the Mother, he says that very clearly. He says it's a sacrifice. The divine has sacrificed his own consciousness, his own power, his own ananda, and come down into the physical world to redeem it, to take it back to its origin. So it's a huge sacrifice. He calls it the Holocaust. The Holocaust is vast destruction. Okay? So this is what he says. Life becomes more and more the sacrifice of the eternal in the individual, constantly self-offered to the eternal transcendence. It is offered in the wide sacrificial ground. One second, I have lost it. Yeah, I got it. It is offered in the wide sacrificial ground of the field of the eternal cosmic spirit. And the force too that offers it is the eternal force, the omnipresent mother. There you are. Okay. The Shakti, eternal force, is nothing but the mother. Okay. The Jagan Mata, we have the idea in India very clearly that the divine is also, the feminine aspect of the divine also is there. Okay. And this is very interesting. The force too that offers is the eternal force, the omnipresent mother. Therefore, is this way a way of union and communion by acts and by the spirit and knowledge in the act, as complete and integral as any our Godward will can hope for or our soul's strength execute. So, Karma Yoga is a very, very powerful method, and the principle of Karma Yoga is sacrifice. And what is sacrifice? Remembering and offering. Remembering and offering. Everything, whatever you are doing. Then it leads to a total understanding of the divine, because it gives you devotion, it gives you knowledge, and it also removes your ego. Okay? We have, it is 8:34, which means that it is time to stop. So next time, we'll read, it has all the power of a Vedic. Okay? Note down, and if there is something that you would like to discuss, we can do that, or would like to share, and otherwise we will stop here for today. Okay?
Yes, Ranganath.
Everybody. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, au revoir everybody.
Merci.